Welcome to Crosspointe.
Welcome to Crosspointe.
Welcome to Crosspointe.
We are an inclusive faith community
seeking to live out the loving, just, and generous way of Jesus.
We are participants in a long tradition
that's less concerned with doctrines and dogma that demand total agreement,
but a life to be lived, enjoyed, and given away to others.
What unites us is a growing awareness that life is precious.
That we are made by love in order to love.
This community is comprised of and affirms the entire human family.
Regardless of race, age, creed,
physical abilities, marital or economic status,
gender identity, or sexual orientation.
So, if you're curious and have come to see,
if you are tired and have come to rest,
if you are grateful and have come to share,
if you are wounded and have come to heal,
if you're joyful and have come to celebrate,
if you are uprooted and have come to belong,
welcome home.
Welcome home.
Welcome home.
Welcome home.
We have sought the truth, we have felt the pain, even wandered beyond our faith in the name. We cannot pretend we are always okay. We cannot depend on fast food grace. So help me let you go. Help me give up control of the God I have made you when my fear has contained you. Help me let you go. Help me give up control of the God I have made you when my fear has contained you. When the way is unclear and the answers elusive, it is different by far than a broken conclusion. You are not the God that my pain has conceived. You are deeper and stronger than my eyes can see. So help me let you go. Help me give up control of the God I have made you when my fear has contained you. Help me let you go. Help me give up control of the God I have made you when my fear has contained you. Of the God I have made you when my fear has contained you. Help me let you go. Help me give up control of the God I have made you when my fear has contained you.
Good morning, Crosspointe. Welcome to our online service, and Happy New Year. As we get started today, I want to ask a couple of reflective questions, and my hope is that this just allows each of us to kind of take a moment and take stock of where we are as we sit here in this service, wherever you are. So let me ask you this. How many of you would say you're currently in the midst of a relational strain of some kind? You don't have to raise your hand, or you can, depending on what situation you're in. But you're in a relational strain. Maybe it's somebody that you live with. Maybe it's extended family, just coming out of the holidays. That can be really, really difficult. But this person, you have disagreements, and they feel like they might never resolve. And between you and this person, there's love. There's no doubt about that. But it feels like sometimes you can't even agree on what the problems are, and communication has come to almost a standstill. And if that doesn't describe you, let me ask you this second question. How many of you are in a country that's in the middle of relational strain, where the disagreements that you have collectively are many and overwhelming, and it feels like they may never resolve? Communication is difficult, and it feels like maybe the very fabric of your shared well-being as a country is in danger of ripping apart. Well, if either of these scenarios describe you, then my hope is that this next song is for you. And it's a hopeful song. It's naming the problems, looking at them, naming them, and as well as moving forward together in hope. And this song is by a beloved American singer-songwriter that we lost. And I can't believe this, we lost him 5 years ago. Can you believe that 2017 was 5 years ago? But this song is called A Higher Place by Tom Petty.
Before that river takes us down, we
There are many ways we collaborate with each other to be the church we're called to be and to serve how we serve. And our contributing financially is one of the most important of those ways. If you want to help fund and sustain what we get to do together, go to crosspoint.org/contribute to see the many simple ways that you can do so. You can even text crosspointenc to 77977 to receive a link to get started now. Thank you for your partnership in the work we do together.
Hello, friends. Wherever you are tuning in from, I hope that you are doing well there. As we get started in this new year, several of us are deciding that we'd like to meet some people, to put ourselves out there, maybe get to know some others, maybe even be known by some others. So, if I'm describing you, we might have a pathway for you. I want to invite you to go to crosspoint.org/groups. And there you're going to find several options. There are groups for discussing faith or parenting, several other topics. And each of these groups is virtual, held online, and they are led by a group leader. And each of them are opportunities to get to know some others and frankly be reminded that life is best lived collaborating with others. So go to crosspoint.org/groups and register there. Groups are going to be starting very soon. Okay, now let me shift gears and read the opening sentences of Luke's gospel, Luke's account of the life of Jesus. Here's how he gets started. He says, "Since many have undertaken to set down an orderly account of the events that have been fulfilled among us, just as they were handed on to us by those who from the beginning were eyewitnesses, they saw it, and were servants of the word or of this message, I also decided, after investigating everything carefully from the very first, to write an orderly account for you, most excellent Theophilus," which means God's friend or lover of God, "so that you may know the truth concerning the things about which you have been instructed." Luke is aware that there are a ton of people talking about Jesus of Nazareth. And while many of these stories or the details agree, they differ in some important ways. And sometimes those differences could be considered minor, but sometimes they were huge. We obviously still see this today. Some people are like, Jesus was a carpenter, and others are like, well, technically he would have been a stonemason. But then other times there are people saying Jesus was a nonviolent first century Jew who spoke and acted against oppressive and corrupt systems of power. And then other people are like, Jesus was a Christian with a machine gun who helped found America. So disagreement still exists. So Luke sets out to try to keep the story on the rails. The same is true of the other Gospels, Matthew and Mark and John, but Luke says it directly right in the beginning as he writes this and then goes on to write the book of Acts. But it's important to understand that he does all this compiling of stories and firsthand witness testimony and writing all this down around the year 85 AD. That's arguably 8 decades after the Christmas story that he famously puts in the 2nd chapter of this book, and 5 decades after the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus. But here's the other thing. 85 AD is about a decade and a half after the Roman Empire laid siege to Jerusalem, destroying the city, incinerating the temple. And the impact of that on Jewish people, I don't think it can be overstated. It's hard to find a modern parallel to having not only your favorite city, but the ancient city of your heritage, your identity, the hub of God's activity on earth, just completely wiped out. And then the temple, where those who could go and make sacrifices and be in awe of the architecture and their own history, it's just gone, reduced to rubble. Imagine if your hometown was completely destroyed by your government, but then multiply that grief by 100 because you knew the Bible said that was never going to happen, especially at the hands of such awful people. And then the temple. I mean, this is a totally imperfect comparison, but imagine the church you grew up in, if you did, that you made your first friends in, maybe got married in or baptized in, maybe buried a parent in, or the church where your great-great-grandparents, their black and white photos still hang on the wall. Parts of the building are named after people you're related to. This is where you got a real sense of yourself and your family. Imagine your government coming in and just leveling it. Despite your praying and your pleading, they just level it to make a point about what power really looks like and who had it. Imagine that. So hold on to that sense of horror of Luke's world in your mind best you can, how it might have felt to be part of Luke's audience. Hold on to this as we consider the things that he's writing and calling good news of the life of Jesus. He tells the story of pregnant Mary and pregnant Elizabeth, John the Baptist's mom, and the birth of baby Jesus and the angels declaring peace on earth and goodwill between people. 15 years after Emperor Titus destroyed Jerusalem and the temple, Luke says that the message coming from on high was one of peace and goodness going forward. And so right after the Christmas story, we're still in the very beginning of his work here, Luke tells of Mary and Joseph at the temple presenting baby Jesus. Luke chapter 2, verse 28, it reads, Simeon took baby Jesus in his arms and praised God, saying, Master, Lord, now you are dismissing your servant in peace, according to your word, for my eyes have seen your salvation, right here in my arms, which you have prepared in the presence of all peoples, a light for revelation to the Gentiles, like an aha for the world, and for glory, for vindication to your people Israel. And the child's father and mother were amazed at what was being said about their son, the things they said about what and who he was, what he was going to do. Then Simeon blessed them and said to his mother Mary, this child is destined for the falling and the rising of many in Israel, and to be a sign that will be opposed, the embodiment of what God is up to in this world, and powerful people, they're going to resist this, so that the secret inner thoughts of many are going to be revealed. And, Mom, a sword will pierce your own soul too. Mom, you're going to end up heartbroken as well. There was a prophet, Anna, the daughter of Phanuel of the tribe of Asher. She was 84. She never left the temple but worshiped there with fasting and prayer night and day. She's there constantly. At that moment, she arrived and began to praise God and to speak about the child to all who were looking for the redemption of Jerusalem. Hear what they said. Salvation is here, a light for the world outside of Jesus' own tradition, and then the beautiful satisfaction of his own tradition, the very one anyone hoping to see Jerusalem's vindication was waiting for. Jesus has been born, and yet by 85 AD, as Luke is writing this so that his audience would have it all right, Jerusalem and the temple were gone, and 1 million prayers had either been answered with a flat no or had seemingly been ignored entirely, and I don't know which is worse sometimes. So is Luke in denial? Is that how we do this? We ignore the real world and focus on select versions of the past and of the future and hope that we don't notice we're doing it? Or is there something else at play here? I spoke with some people after last week's message on certainty and our inability to have it about most things. And I've had the conversation in other contexts lately too. Many people seeming to be waking up to the realization, and I'm still in this waking up process with you, but waking up to this realization about how much chaos and unpredictability and suffering happen in our lives and how unavoidable it all is, and how trying to live avoiding it tends to make things worse, and so on. But the big aha that I see people having, with neither cynicism or denial, is that this is just how things are. Life as a human being has always been beautiful, and it's always been hideous. It's always been a gift to be alive, and it has always been fraught with pain and suffering, both as a result of our actions, but also seemingly random occurrences that we don't in any way deserve. And it's living fully and honestly in this world that we become deeper, fuller, more whole versions of ourselves. Not waiting to start living in some utopia, which is a word that literally means not a place, but living now in this world, in the one world that is. And while cheap religion has so often sold itself as a medicine to eliminate pain, promising what plenty have recognized, this is the opium for the masses, this is the pain relief for the populace, the deeper wisdom, the perennial tradition, keeps insisting what Jesus said. I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I've overcome it. You will have trouble. It will go sideways. It is chaos sometimes. It is often unfair. People will ruin a good thing because they become foolishly convinced that they can usher in a better thing with their forcefulness. In this world, you will have trouble. But be encouraged. I have conquered it. I've overcome it. He hasn't removed all the bad. He has shown us how good radiates from within the bad. Because here's a thing that can help us understand how to live in this world as it is, how to address it genuinely without either fighting it or fleeing from it. A way to stop trying to force reality to conform to our preferences or force others to contort themselves to our ideals. And it's this: there's a huge difference between saving the world and fixing the world. And Jesus saves. Empires try to fix. Luke is telling this story in a real context, saying, this is how it went. This is what people said. Read this here in the world as it currently is and still be encouraged. Don't miss the life available to us now. We've been rescued from being at the mercy of the worst of it. Jesus saves. In a world where might is right, where power is ripped out of other people's hands and it's killed for and killed to protect, where hypocrisy is assumed and changing to fit the room is actually rewarded, where hurtful, dehumanizing people in power retain the ability to mobilize others against the most vulnerable, where God is understood as the property of an elite few willing to speak for God most brazenly, in that world, then just like, and it's the same now, Simeon and Anna, holding baby Jesus, saw a path through. And Luke could have left it out since the temple, by his moment in history, was smoldering just outside his window. But he understood that in this world, the trouble keeps coming. But Jesus of Nazareth saves us from becoming no more than participants in bad systems. In this world, Jesus teaches us how to live. And once we understand that Jesus cannot be legitimately put into service to fix society, to rule or fix a nation, or to keep oneself from making even personal mistakes, then we begin to understand that Jesus offers us a way of being human in the real world, rather than an escape plan into some other world. See, Jesus isn't a product that, for those who use it, it takes away all disappointment and pain and all my potential for causing disappointment and pain. That's an easily disprovable formula if you're paying attention. And what a reason to try other products, frankly, that work better than Jesus if comfort is the goal. Instead, the peace and the redemption and the salvation that Simeon and Anna foresaw and that Luke was willing to write about was that in the midst of all that has gone wrong, we're offered a way to become more and better than what has gone wrong. Then in the midst of so much hurt and death, we don't have to automatically become hurt and death to others. That even in the inevitability of human beings being awful to each other, we can still choose in real time love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, trustworthiness, gentleness, and self-mastery. Not because of what it gets us out of necessarily, but because of who we become despite how the world is going. And I would argue we already fundamentally know that this is the goal from childhood on, to be who we most fundamentally are in the face of so many compelling invitations to become something less. We all know this. And maybe someday, all the terrible and all the pain and all the disappointment and all the existential crisis-inducing, you've got to be kidding me, parading itself into our lives and into our homes, maybe someday all of that goes away. Maybe that is on a distant horizon. But we are to live fully now, to stop waiting for the exterior world to give us permission to be who we were made to be. We don't wait until later. And we're not invalidated by what else might happen later. We get on with living lives of love and decency with one another now, as Luke did in his context and hoped that his readers would also do. I don't know what difficulties are headed your way. Maybe they're already at your gates and they're not leaving. I know the list of things we're all going through together is a long enough list as it is, and that's before we even get into the very real personal hardship lists that each of us have. But here's the thing. I refuse to tell you that with faith, it'll get better. I hope that it does, and it might, but it very, very well might not anytime soon. And I hope that people around you recognize opportunities to improve things for you if they can do that, but they might not. All I can tell you with integrity is that your life is already happening. There's no time but now to live in the ways of love and peace and kindness like we see in the life of Christ. That is to say, your real life isn't on hold until the storm passes. What has gone so badly isn't a glitch that you caused by getting something wrong, and now you've got to figure out to get it right. And what's gone wrong, this hasn't been assigned to you as training for some other moment. I mean, it can definitely teach you something if you let it, but it wasn't done to you by God to teach you a lesson that you may or may not understand until later. This isn't how things work. And it's not helpful to believe the pain and chaos that inevitably unfold around us, those things have been written into the script by God to enhance the story somehow, or to enhance us, the characters. What I'm saying is, it's just like this. Things go badly and things go well. And while some of that can be understood as cause and effect, so much of it is experienced as random awfulness that just jumps out in front of us and makes life hard. The redemption and glory of a thing, even our lives, that's not a statement of them being exempt from the very worst that can happen. It's always been this way. You will have trouble, and then you will have breathtaking beauty, and then trouble and beauty, round and round it goes. To face this directly is to reduce our anxiety and our tension with ourselves and others, and get busy with the work of being decent to each other in an indecent world. This is what it means to be involved in a community of love and faith and peace. We walk in and engage reality together, giving thanks for the example of Jesus, celebrating with those who celebrate, mourning with those who mourn, continuing to put one foot in front of the other in the name of love. Whatever your station, I hope that the Spirit of Christ will show you that you are loved now, and that peace is in the air for you, all around you now. That whatever we've been through, whatever we're going through, and whatever is coming, even just today, may our lives be marked by the Spirit of the one who promises that this trouble-giving world has been overcome. And then let's live that way. We'll see you next week.
Thank you for joining us today, and welcome home. If you are in need of assistance during this crisis, please reach out at crosspoint.org/help.